Ian, you mentioned on the Washington-Oregon side of things not being so sure about kind of, I guess, that partnership, if you will. What did you mean by that?
Well, first of all, I think part of it is this. And again, I mean, all of us, whether it's me or John Wilner or whoever is out there, at Spock, none of us know, because if any of us knew really what was going on, we would have saw USC and UCLA leaving, right?
Sure, yeah.
Let's preface it with that. But the Oregon-Washington partnership, I don't know what it's like. Well, I mean, you guys are in football crazy world, but like they don't like each other. The institutions don't like each other. This is not, Washington and Washington State work together on a variety of things in research. Oregon State the same in state. There's legislative, there's budgets with the legislature, things like that. That's not the case with Oregon and Washington. I mean, it's a very acrimonious, contentious at times relationship. I look at the Big Ten as this. Oregon has, we'll go back to the brand, right? Because that's probably what it comes down to more than anything. We're looking at realignment and super conferences. You guys would probably agree. I mean, I would ask you, I'd throw it back at you. If I say, Pac-12 without USC, and I say Pac-12 football, what's the first thing that comes to mind? It's probably Oregon, right? Yep. I mean, whether it's goofy uniforms or not, it's the Ducks. They have built up a national brand. Washington thinks it's still 1991. Don James is the coach, and they're winning a national championship, sharing it, by the way, with Miami. That's Washington fans still literally think it's 91. Probably like Cowboy fans still think they're something special, right? That's how it works. And they live in the past. And I just think that with Washington, there's Washington fans up here. They're still like, what the hell? How do we not get invited to the Big Ten? Well, because probably USC doesn't want you in the Big Ten. And if I'm USC, I sure as hell don't want Oregon in the Big Ten, because if right now USC and UCLA have the market cornered as far as big time college football and the biggest recruiting base, which is the LA area, Southern California as a whole. Why would I want to compete with Oregon, in the same conference if I don't have to? So that's kind of how I look at it. I really think that's the case. I think that, I think Oregon and Washington, if they're being honest with themselves, they're probably better suited with some sort of enhanced Pac-12, some sort of ESPN broker deal with the ACC, and moving on. Now, when the college football playoff gets restructured in, 4 years from now, then maybe all bets are off again. But for the next 3 or 4 years, I think that's probably your best bet.
One more thing, Ian, if you don't mind, on Oregon and Washington. If those two, if they do look at the Big 12, if there is any interest between the two, who do you think would have the most interest? Washington and again, things have got to be set up, and everyone has to see what the new money's going to look like and all. But if of those two, if both of them were talking to the Big 12, which of them do you feel is more likely to want to join the Big 12 if that scenario ever gets to that point?
I would think Oregon, but I think they would both. I think it would be equal, because neither one of those two schools wants to be perceived as lesser than the other. And so I think, like, if you're Washington, you would hate to see Oregon go to the Big 12. You're left behind in a watered-down Pac-10. Even though you might think you're the kingpin out here, that would be a shot to the ego. I think their bigger fear at Washington would be Oregon and Notre Dame going to the Big Ten and Washington left behind. The other part of it, too, guys, I don't know how much you've talked about it with, Texas is a lot closer and Oklahoma a lot closer than we're talking with the, LA schools going to the Big Ten geography-wise. But I cannot for the life of me fathom how we're talking about, all the non-revenue sports that sometimes run, have matches multiple times a week, flying across the country thousands of miles. To me, that makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, Oregon playing in the Big 10 or Big 12, traveling to where? I mean, Ames, Iowa, or wherever. I guess you guys are Baylor, right?
Waco,
right? Yep. So I mean, it's like I don't. Yeah, like I just don't. How do you? We're sending our tennis team there? Like what? How does that make sense? So I don't care how much revenue you're getting. I travel for a living. In the fall, I travel with the Seahawks every week. You fly commercial that many times, it's going to wear on you, man. It's just not good, not healthy. I know we want to throw out the term student athlete and say it doesn't exist anymore. I don't know. Last I checked, most of those kids, especially in the non-revenue sports, are still going to class. That's a hard thing to ask for them to do.
Preaching to the choir, man, on that point. Yeah.